Good
Good morning,
morning,
Alana.
Alana. Hi.
Hi, welcome back.
I'm so glad to be back.
Yes,
Always up to something, trying to decide these interesting topics, so I'm glad to be back.
This is a little bit of an edgy show, but I feel like we should just dive in because, the realness is here. We might as well
Right.
discuss it, right?
Definitely.
So, we're going to talk about the effects of racism and, if reincarnation is real, like how does that affect us? I mean, many questions here, but let's just jump in. Go ahead and start and just share.
Yeah, so the reason why I wanted to really kind of touch base on the deprogramming aspect of the programming and deprogramming aspects of racism and how it affects us on a reincarnated level, because we don't really talk a lot about reincarnation, but in my research and my studies, I'm actually certified to do past life readings. I don't necessarily conduct them all the time, but I think that part of my journey is just learning these modalities because they're going to come in hand sometime, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But racism, I feel like it's something that's injected into our consciousness and is something that is I grew up in the Los Angeles Valley. I grew up in a soup full of different races. I have a best friend that's Persian. I have a best friend. I had a best friend when I was younger who was Black or African, either way you want to say it. I had, tons of Asian friends. I definitely been a victim of some form of racism, but they were always prejudiced things that you could tell were just kind of learned throughout, some type of programming that happened, a fight that happened between the parents when they were younger in a classroom setting or something like that. So
yeah,
it's in it. And so when it comes to reincarnation, I have to question when someone is talking about a general ethnicity or race of people, do they take into account the reincarnation wheel? Because I think that we're kind of on this tree of life, on this reincarnation wheel, and we're playing out different archetypes and different roles at different times. And I'm not sure if we look the same, or all I know is that some form of its consciousness is in me, inside of me. And because I can feel it and I've tapped into it, and I've met with tons of people who have similar experiences. And so I kind of just wanted to briefly give the definitions of program and deprogrammed, just because we haven't done that, and this is our 5th episode. So I just want to say that program is a planned series of future events, items, or performances, a weekly program of films, a sheet or booklet giving details of items or performers of an event or performance, a theater program, to provide a program for someone or for a consciousness. So we learn how to program our lives consciously as an example. And some of it we learn, and some of it's taught to us and arranged according to the plan or schedule. And so if you look at a divine blueprint, and we are all separated, then maybe our divine blueprint is to come back as one and to realize that our differences are here to expand our consciousness and to become more, in this golden age. It's really important. I see a lot of amazing African speakers talking about, white people are this and that, and that they're not really humans and all these things. And I can agree with some of that, but when it comes down to it, I do feel connected to those other ethnicities, therefore, which is why I bring up reincarnation.
Wait, can you say that again? I didn't hear that. White people aren't humans. I never heard that before.
Man, I can't remember what I said now because I was going in a.
You said that like how some races are saying like white people aren't humans.
Oh, okay. So for instance, there is the speaker, Young Pharaoh. I listen to him, and I agree with almost everything he says about chakras, and he's very enlightened. But when he talks about who white people are and where we come from, he says that white people are like Caucasians, like we're dead versions of Asians, and that we're dead, and that we're not anything important because we don't have melanin. And so it kind of like hit me at the sore spot because I feel very connected to African roots even being white as I am. And so I think that there's something that has to do with our DNA being connected to everything that is, if we can tap into it. So that's what I was trying to say when I brought up the sayings that people were saying about white people. And I know I'm talking a lot. I want to let you chime in. So let me just give the definition for deprogrammed, and then I'll let you chime in. Okay. So deprogram is to release someone from apparent brainwashing, typically that of a religious cult, by the systematic reindoctrination of conventional values. So I love how that was like the basic definition had to do with brainwashing and that of religious cult, because, you know, in some ways religion does play a huge part in all of these things. So I'll let you take it from there.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. I mean, it's thank you for sharing all that. So much information, so much to think about. I mean, I don't mind touching on all the topics. You know, sometimes they're touchy. We're not here to offend anyone. We're just here to have a conversation and see what comes through. I think, you know, it's important to talk about things, because if you don't, they stay dormant, they stay stuck, and they stay in their unconscious patterns. So even by talking about things, if any of this triggers you guys, just know, like, our intent is just to explore and to expand and to heal. Really, we're both healers at the end of the day. So yeah, we've been going through this war for a very long time, and this is plays on part of the psychological warfare that's been going on. War has come in many different forms. The number one form is separation, all right? Separating the races, separating classes, separating sexes, you know, gender wars. It's like, how many ways can we separate you from your divinity?
Yeah, we're in parts, right?
We're in parts, and that causes a great fragmentation to our consciousness, right? So we're always thinking we're separate and fragmented. And we do have a lot of healing to do, like so much healing. And I was writing about what it was like growing up in Palo Alto as a brown girl, but my mother lived on the other side of the tracks, which was East Palo Alto, and at that time it was the highest homicide rate in the US. You know, it was like the scariest place to live, basically, the hood. And it was literally one bridge over. Like, it was like mega mansions, and then you cross the bridge, and all of a sudden you're in another world. And I, you know, being multi-ethnic myself, I'm both, you know.
That's why I was really glad to have this conversation with you, because you do give me such ancient roots as well. I feel, you know, you're shamanic healer, and it definitely goes back really far. So
it really does. But we're here to heal this, and I love you, Alana. You're such a great soul. You're such an old soul, and I know, like, we've been everything, you know. And but for me, it was really important to have that experience, to be able to see the stark contrast of how it is in one world, almost a world of like light and rainbows, and then you cross a bridge and it's a world of darkness, and not just pigment, but like a world energetically of darkness. And how this can possibly be, you know, like, it was very intense. Of course, I went back there and it's completely gentrified now, right? But sometimes just being in one, like, when you separate the races like that, you're not giving enough opportunity to the people who are on the other side of the tracks, because they can't cross over.
The spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. The spectrum. They can't cross over as easily and get jobs in the Palo Alto area, right, where it's really, really beautiful. And I went to school in Palo Alto.
Really?
That's awesome. I was born in Palo Alto, Stanford Hospital.
It's so beautiful out there.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I've lived in Los Altos Hills. I mean, so I've had a really weird, eccentric childhood, where I've been amongst the wealthiest, and then also I've been amongst the poorest, like both, you know. So I've had that duality. I've really experienced the duality of like life, of color, of race, of all of that, gender. But I think it's all part to have more compassion for all, because we have so much healing to do. And so going back to have you been a different race in your past life? You know, that's such a great question. I mean, I've done regressions and future lifetimes where I've been like an alien. You know what I mean? not,
Right.
not even like a human.
Well, not
So
just about past lives, but can we figure out if it matters in our ascension process? I mean, where we're going as a whole, because we're all here now, and we're all like
we're
trying to
all
figure out who was here first and who did this first. And it's like, you know, creation's laughing at us because like we created each other probably or some sort, you know, like just to give each other difference.
well,
You
we
know,
did. We came here to have contrast. We came here to learn from each other, to be teachers and to be students from each other. But we didn't come here to
the
hate
sun
each
hits
other.
us all the same. One of us might burn, but it doesn't mean that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we're heartless or we're soulless.
No. So going back to that question, I would say that you know, what it comes down to is really consciousness. Like if that's why really in religious texts they're really like, this is the one life and you better devote it, you know, to God in this form, in this white form, and then if you don't, you're going to go to hell. But there's nothing about past lives there, right? And so why? Because really our multidimensional abilities can give us insight into our deepest healing. You know, I think if we can figure out, I'm glad I've done so many past life regressions and so many future life, you know, regression, or I don't know what you call it, but future life healings too, because you're able to see that you're not just one, and that we choose, like, one lifetime you could have been one of the slave owners that went to Africa to get slaves, brought them over, and been a trader, and in the next lifetime you could have been, you know, a colored person yourself, you know,
Do
and
you think
experience.
that we are also can also just be connected to the, they say that, you know, trauma gets passed down, things can get passed down, not just trauma,
Yeah,
but, you know, obviously gifts, everything gets passed down. So could we be partially a new soul and part of our souls that's passed on? You know,
we're both.
for instance, my grandmother, my great grandmother's name is Ruth Starr with the two R's, and I was named after her. And she died right before I was born, literally like months before I was born. And I was like, I came into the world by this chance, you know. So, or was it divinely in a blueprint with this timing cycle where I got part of that energy in me from her time on Earth? So I know that's a lot. It's an earful, but I would just wonder how it affects us, and if we're like, I don't want to get too off topic, but I heard from a different researcher of past lives that they question, are we memories? Because sometimes we have deja vus, like we've been
Mm-hmm.
here already. So are we viewing memories of our different timelines that we're on in some way?
Absolutely. It's all of the above. That's
Thank
why it's so confusing to be a human. I mean, I've been in, that's why, like, going to certain places when you travel, I've traveled to places that I've been already. Like when I went to Italy, I had deja vu. I was standing right there in the Roman Empire, which is completely like destroyed now, and like I was filled with memories. So, you know, we do have all of that. We're data systems. We are consciousness. So we can't escape our past consciousness, right? We can only evolve it. We have to evolve with our consciousness. We don't just, it doesn't just delete, right? Even if we lived another life, that's why we can have feelings that we do that don't make any sense, right? So, you know, like I was saying, we play different roles. Like that's how karma is too. What one lifetime you're the good guy, one time you're the bad guy, or
So
whatever that.
who wrote the play? And if it's a program of future events in
Right.
this matrix, then it's very well that the way we're programmed to behave towards each other is something we have to get out of and deprogram.
Well, we have to deprogram, but we're also, but what we don't know is that we're also the programmers. So it's simultaneously both. And I know that sounds
No,
really
no, it makes a lot of sense because I feel like
complicated.
we look down at ourselves, right?
We look down at ourselves like we're nothing, we're nobody, you know, there's only one God and it's all up to them. But at the same time, we are co-creating. That's why I always say we are co-creators. You're a co-creator. I'm a co-creator. The listener is a co-creator. We are simultaneously creating this reality together. And that's why we have different timelines, because not everyone's going to co-create the same reality. You know, like you and I might create the same reality because we want a world of peace and love, and we want abundance and joy and all the good things that life is, you know, and other people might want to insist on keeping war and hate and prejudice going, right? So as far
I
as
think
free
that has
will
to do with
goes,
that it has to do, and I like to bring in the music industry because this show is about mind control and deprogramming. And I think that I'm not trying to say that creation art is bad and the things that we're doing is all bad, but I think that who we are is shown in the things that we create, and how we make our art and how we express ourselves really shows our true colors. And when we watched the music industry, they create these drama roles between relationships and lovers and things that they act out that are not really real. It's like they create drama to have things to write, to sing about. And I think that actually does perpetuate the split in consciousness that has to do with how we're healing these collective wounds, because they're constantly, in our face all the time by what we're creating. And I think that's part of the program that is, you mentioned before how some movies, how come they don't get funding? How come these horror movies get funding? And how that has to do with the splitting of our races. I see all different things. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think, there's one faction of the agenda that's totally funded, right? So it's it's easy because you can all these ways to completely brainwash people, right? And unfortunately, it's up to us due to free will if we want to be brainwashed. So we can sit in front of the TV and watch all the commercials and download ourselves with, I want to go out and get some Pepsi or Coke or whatever,
That's what I think until I look around and I'm like, do half these people know what's happening to them?
No, of course not.
Do we? We're not. Most people are unconscious of what's going on.
Absolutely
and
not.
I wish I could act like it. I wish I could act like it doesn't. I don't see it and just play along with the Matrix. It's fun to just be in it, but then when you really sit back and look at it and you unwind, you definitely question things and you get in conversations like these.
I mean, these are so important. These are important topics to talk about, and it's okay to go and explore. And you were asking, like, how does having a different or being a different race affect our past lives or this lifetime? And what I want to say is that, like, you need to be a programmer. Okay, people, if you're listening, you need to be your own programmer, someone to help you, because we have access to everything inside of us. Like, it's all data, right? Data. We're data systems. And so you have to, that's why you go to hypnotherapists, so you can figure out what data is stored there that you didn't know you had, positive or negative, until you understand that you're the tool, like you're the toolbox. You have everything inside of you. You have to take charge of that and start unwinding it. You don't have to do anything, but if you want to move forward, then you're going to have to. Otherwise, you're just going to roll down a hill like a snowball. And does this matter in ascension? And the answer is yes, absolutely matters, because we are here as sleeping programmers, right? To wake up and to start rearranging things inside of us. Like, we have all of it. Like, so that's where forgiveness comes in. That's what I was saying earlier. We could have been the slave owner and we could have been the slave, both. Okay. I just want to say that. We don't get to really get away without feeling both sides of the spectrum. So that's where forgiveness comes in. Forgiving the self for any atrocities performed on others, and forgiving self for creating that karma, right? And then I think when you start to do that, you're starting to heal the wound. It starts to disintegrate, because what keeps everything tied together, like really bonded, I guess, is the trauma. That's the one thing that keeps everything like bonded. And I mean, not in a good way. That's a negative bondage. We want to break free from bondage of illusion. That keeps the illusion going. So we illusion and delusion, and we want to be co-creators of our reality. And
you mentioned karma, and if we're talking about ascension, do you think that the karma that we get in these lives are from our past lives? Because if you were in fact a slave owner or a slave in a different life of some sort, then you would have certain feelings accidentally towards another race. I mean, you get what I'm trying to say? I think karma has a lot to do with that.
Karma has a ton to do with everything. That's why they don't talk about it in the scriptures or anything either, because you won't be free from your karma unless you look at it and heal it, right? You just keep recreating more and more. And I think that is one road you can take. You can take this life and create as much negative karma. You have the free will to do so. But you also have the free will to break out and to start releasing that which no longer serves you. Like when I do Akashic record reading, so when I go into the Akashic records of someone, we want to make sure the lesson is downloaded to them, and then we can release the pattern, release the belief, or release the program. We don't have to keep it running. You don't have to keep doing the same thing over and over again. But the soul, see, the soul needs to know that it got the lesson. And what happens a lot in this matrix system, and from my channelings, and feel free to think your own, but people get, when they're leaving this of their life, right, they die, then they go into there's multiple places they can go, but sometimes, and I've seen this, where people go into, I mean, it sounds bizarre, but almost an AI type of death experience, where AI will pretty much lead you down this light, and then replay your life, but then it won't be complete, as if you didn't complete what you were supposed to complete or something. And so your soul registers that it didn't complete it, and it has to redo it again. Yeah. So I mean, that's not the case for everything, but that is something that came up in some of my channeling. So we sometimes get played back a story as if we didn't complete it. So that's why when I go into people's Akashic records, a lot of times they have completed something, but it's not marked as complete. Does that make sense?
Right. So you're still searching for it.
So you're still searching for it. And even though you've already completed that can keep you in a loop. And sometimes we get caught in artificial karmic loops too.
Right. And when I say program, we know that when they refer to the matrix, we call these matrix builders. They're builders of the matrix. And when we look at different programs that are injected into consciousness through this one, I found really interesting. I always refer to ascensionglossary.com, and the aggressor program is to instigate forms of intimidation and bullying through variety of techniques to manipulate or control other people or exert power over a situation or group. So intimidation is used in this aggressor programming. And the reason why I bring that up is because it might have something to do with the way music has become popular, because there's a lot of aggression in it, I see. And I think that's very intimidating, and it creates this when the feathers get ruffled on a chicken when they're really upset. Like, I just feel like it creates this flare in the way people their behavior comes out when they listen to it. And it's not that I'm telling anyone to stop listening to anything. I still listen to it, but I definitely know when I'm affected by it. I've known for a long time the effect that I received from certain music and frequencies. So frequency control is real, and this is just something to help wake people up to be more present to the moment.
It's true.
I'm speaking to myself here too.
Like, you know, it is so true. What you listen to, you become. So, you know, if we're listening to, everything is mantra. Words are mantra. You know, that's how we co-create. And so with our words, I am presence, bringing the mantras out through words, and then also listening to mantras. So that's why we listen to mantra music, because it's healing and clearing. But you know, music has made a really turn for the worse. Like, it's shit. Sorry, I have to say it. It's shit. I mean, the mainstream music, I can't handle listening to the radio. It is not appealing. There's absolutely nothing that I want to listen to out there. I like indie artists and people that are a little more indie, because they don't have to conform to this hatred, you know. But understand, a lot of artists, they have to go through their own rigorous programs, and they get rigorously programmed, and therefore they don't have total free will. And also, what they put out is really subject to what is, you know, checked as or approved of, right? So you can't really just put out what you truly want from your heart and soul, because that's not how it works in the music industry. You have to sort of put out what is on the agenda. And hence, you know,
that makes sense why Katy Perry comes out with I Kissed a Girl first, and then she starts singing about awakening or something. And it's just funny, you know, they start off that way to get your attention.
Yeah, they'll do anything shocking to get your attention. It's all for, you know, shock and show. But I mean, at the end of the day, is it moving your soul? Is it touching you? It's all poppy, like even the rap, everything, it's just garbage. And absolute garbage. And so I can't listen to it. Like, whatever happened to things like Billie Holiday, Frank Sinatra, you know, things that had soul, that touched you, like opened your heart. So music is meant to open your heart. It's art from the heart. It's not crappy stuff, you know, like, it's meant to move you. It should move you. And if it doesn't move you, if it inspires you to think that you're a badass for no reason, then it's probably, you know, I don't know. It's not really good. It's not really like for your highest and best good. I just went to this concert this weekend and learned about synth music. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
It's really cool. But it was like interesting, like how they integrated like spirituality, at least the shows that I went to, with it. And there was like the world and the universe playing in the background, and it was so cool and so beautiful. And you could tell the artists were really passionate about it. And you know, I love indie artists.
I think in overall, we're learning free will of how to use our gifts. Mm-hmm. Because all of these things that we have to sing, to dance, to perform, we can do, we're creating so much now. And I think that what we do with our power, what we do with our gifts is really important. And to be more conscious of what you're being involved in, mm-hmm. and giving your soul to.
It's so important, you know. I didn't come on this show to like put people down, but I mean, but I do find the music that's on the radio very offensive. Like, it just doesn't resonate with me on any way, shape, or form. So I'm really grateful for the indie artists that are standing in their truth and wisdom and bringing forth really cool, interesting, unique, beautiful music that's maybe not out there as much, you know. So we want to talk about how the programs are used to distract us from our divinity and our connection with nature.
Yes, that's where we're getting at with all of this. That's where we're getting at. Yeah, and by no means, you're right. I do tend to get in these, you know, these rants about all these programs and things, but they're important just to know. And I would never put someone's art down overall. Like, I'm just not a hater that people are creating things. So,
well, yeah, yes. but at the same time, like, we are being honest and saying it's not always going to be for your highest and best good. if 12-year-olds are listening to mainstream artists and all they're talking about is sex or violence,
right,
or how I got more bling than you, I don't think that's good either. So you know what I mean, as far as like
nothing's sacred. Nothing is sacred.
nothing's sacred. Like if I
and
was a
that's when it gets
parent,
back to nature.
yeah, if I was a parent, I wouldn't let my kid listen to that. I would not, because yeah, I would want my kid to grow up in an organic environment where they can truly discover the divinity of themselves, because I think it's a violation of our imagination where when we're little, we're meant to be as open and connected to nature as possible. And oh my goodness, I'm seeing a black snake. Whoa. Okay.
Right now, that's amazing.
Right now, a black snake is so beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's right in my back. I have my
And also, it
office.
hit 30:09 at 9:09 a.m. when that happened. The 9.
Wow.
We just
Oh my
completed
gosh.
we just completed a checkpoint.
That was
Well,
incredible.
you
That moved
mentioned
me.
how nature, and I think that the reason why a lot of these programs happen is to kind of, just like chemtrails, we need a certain amount of sunlight. We need a certain amount of information to activate our DNA, and that is through nature, because there's there's portals, and so it's all interconnected through this morphogenic field, and and consciousness comes together that way. And I think that when we are when we're wrapped up in all these distractions, we tend to not receive this information coming in from consciousness, from nature. And it's collecting and siphoning our energy when we're in aggressive states and when we're in our lower minds. There's the entities that feed off of us. And during these times, you can call them, I just learned about the machine elves, but that's a different story. But there's so many different not programs, I'm trying not to use that word so much, but it collects our loosh, it's a term referred to our emotional energy that's radiated by us.
Loosh. Let's talk about loosh for a minute. It's the juicy stuff.
Yeah.
It's some juicy stuff, y'all. That's why there is so much fear program or fear propaganda that's created because the loosh is juicy, and lower end entities feed off of it, except lower end entities have higher technology. Isn't that ironic? What? Yeah, so
I love that you know this stuff. I just love it. I could this is what we're talking about, and we got it. Love it.
But so it's important to understand, like, this is what they use as their beauty serum.
They're what?
They make themselves youthful. They can live forever, feeding off of loosh, which is so it's like the negative energy, the fear we produce when in our body.
When we're threatened or harmed or being killed in our soul some way, it's like producing a traumatic pain, like a radiating light of, not light, but
it's an energy, it's an essence, but it's an essence of fight or flight, live or die. It's an essence that you don't want to be radiating because it's harmful. It's causing harm to your being, and it's also causing like a break in your aura. It's breaking your energy field apart. But these beings, they feed off of it, and they've been feeding off of us. We are a colony for them of food, just like any a chicken ranch or a cow farm, except the slaughter is not like, it's not like just a quick slaughter. It's almost a milking. When you milk a cow, you're slowly milking the person for their loosh, and and then they have to recover, and then you milk them again.
I want to give an example of how the loosh is created. So, say there's like a couple that came together, and it's what they call like an alien love bite, where a relationship is set up, and there's so much drama in the relationship that they're constantly getting their energy siphoned. One person is constantly or both of them are constantly fighting with each other. It's like there's never a point of rest, and then they feed off of their pain, so to say, and those entities come through those kind of relationships, or even just people online that are just really mean and aggressive, and you get upset in that moment, or just in so many different cases we give off this it's like just imagining there's like these siphoning machines over your head when these situations happen.
It's interesting. I mean, but when you think about it, you know, it's like this is a big farm. It's a big farm and lots of people, and so that's a lot of loosh. But see, the thing is, if we become whole and healed and release our trauma, it's like we're taking away their direct food supply. It's a threat, and so they don't want to let that happen, and that's why, you know, a lot of false flag events are created, because they're loosh producing machines, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's going to create that fear and that, oh my gosh, this world is so dangerous. And you know, they don't put in the news the good things people are doing, and there's so many great people doing so many good things. It's unbelievable. I'm so proud of all the people that are doing beautiful things, creating beautiful lives, creating harmony, creating organic living, and you know, sustainable villages, and like things that are really newsworthy, maybe new inventions. There's just so much positive going on, you guys. Don't get me wrong. Like, there are people. We have so many people that are doing beautiful, incredible, wonderful things in the world. I wish there was like a positive news station where we could really celebrate too the positive, impactful things that our brothers and sisters are doing. It's the opposite of the loosh, right? And so, but you have to know about the loosh first before you stop creating it. You know, you have
But
to know.
do you think that's part of the reason why we're in this? The definition of program is a set of future events, and that's why I said the blueprint earlier, is that maybe in some way we have these blockages and we're introduced to this kind of negative aspect first, so we can find our way through the darkness and illuminate our consciousness to become these pillars of heaven on earth for other people to come out of it. Because I really think that there's a reason for why we're suffering, because I just definitely think that we're in some type of correction right now of our ways of being. So I think it's all relevant on this sad point, although I hate it and I love talking about it at the same time, because it's so frustrating when you could feel so much, and like it's like, when does it end?
Yeah, no, I understand.
But at the same time, it's like, it's also, you get to decide when it begins. Every day you can be a new version of yourself if you can get out of and realize this harvest of souls that's going on, kind of, and just be more aware and more conscious of our actions.
That's oh my goodness, beautiful, absolutely beautiful what you just said. And you know, the term harvest of souls is so correct. And going back to race and racism, that's really one of the biggest ways that they can loosh you. So you got to get loosed, you know, through getting like feeling angry, or feeling hate, or feeling fear, or feeling any of that. You know, those emotions that are artificially created sometimes are really so that these beings can have more loosh. It's not really even about race anymore. Now it's just about feeding, right? So if we can understand that we're actually really, really in this together, like we're so aligned, we really should come together, that we're not enemies, that we have so much in common, that if we could understand that we right now, we're like the humans, right?
We're not enemies, but they're predators. There are really predators.
I'm not just making that go away. There are predators, and there are wolves in sheep's clothing that you know, are out there. And not only that, there's a lot of non-humans that are out there looking like humans, mm-hmm. you know, and we live in a world that is filled with illusion. So you have to wake up, people. Snap, 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 you know, have your tea and wake up, you know, or coffee, but don't keep on sleeping. Don't sleep your way through this, because you're just going to continue to perpetuate this old program. And it's time for us to wake up together so that we can step into the light together. If we could all work in harmony, my gosh, we would have a new world right here, right now. So it's time for us to just say, hey, we're not enemies. Like none of us. Like we have to stop this playing these 3D games, these manipulation games. We didn't create them, but we play them. And so, do we want to step out together and find a new world, or do we want to continue to perpetuate the pain and continue to feed the pain body and the loosh producing machines that we are, you know?
I know.
So, so we were talking about um, going, receiving light, right? Receiving light codes that come in. Um, and you asked, you know, does it matter what color you are when you receive light codes, right?
Right.
So I would say absolutely not. It doesn't matter. The light is the light, and you have to just. It's about your consciousness more than anything, you know. So like me, I just go into the forest, and sometimes what was it 5 days ago, three, whatever. I'm really bad with time in real life, but there was a light coming through, and I got the downloads, and the light's coming in for you people, every single person on Earth, 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's all there for you, and it's up to you if you want to receive them. But you have to start deleting old programs to make room for this light, because once it starts to infiltrate you, you're going to need more space. Like you can't keep all the junk mail in there. You can't keep all the
That's
old
right. You have to
programs.
remove the data
Mm-hmm.
that's stored in your memory, that's stored in your mind, and make room for the light, the information.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's really important to stand in the sun and receive. If you don't want to sun gaze and look directly in it, I wouldn't recommend it right away doing it, but I definitely recommend closing your eyes and focusing on the middle of your forehead and receiving, because the sun, you need to do just like the trees and plants do. They turn their face toward the sun and they grow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important. And a lot of people are scared of the sun, and there's just a lot of information that comes from it, and you learn both from the sun and the moon, but there's something there for sure.
I love going to a sunset. And then when the sun's coming down, I don't obviously look directly at the sun, stare at it. I want to, but I stare. I mean, I sort of softly gaze and have a soft gaze and look, you know, maybe to this, just a little bit to the side where I'm seeing it. And then I let the light rays infiltrate my eyes, and it starts to download into my system. It's saturating my system with light codes. And these
Mm-hmm.
codes activate inside of you. There are many, many different kinds of codes, but we need to start activating our codes because they've been deactivated, you know, and it's only our job to do it. If you want to open up to the codes, open. If you don't,
And
don't.
then sit in the dark to produce melatonin.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
To also receive, I believe the Divine Mother comes that way a lot. So
Yeah.
in the darkness in the womb area.
So beautiful. I feel like we could go on another tangent about I mean, we have so
Rada,
much to
I'm
talk
really
about.
starting to think that maybe we're just meant to do it, you know, just we don't have to time anything, and there's no perfect way to have these conversations.
No.
I learned so much from people that were just daring enough to open their mouth and speak what they felt was true.
Mm-hmm.
And like I like to tell people, sometimes I pull things out of my ass, sometimes I really research
Mm-hmm.
this stuff hard and true.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to you to do your own research in the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because this is your journey, and this is just our perception.
Exactly. And we're just, you know, we all have different filters about how we're taking it in. So take what you want and release what you don't. And, you know, it's always up to you. You're your own sovereign being. So take responsibility for that and know that you can find what you came to find by looking, by searching, and being a divine seeker of the light.
Right. So today we're tying in reincarnation, possible theories on how racism is perpetuated through the program and how we can get out of it and how it's related to nature. That's basically what we just cleared up or got into. Anything else?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. And if you have any parting words before we leave.
Well, just thank you for having me on here, and for, you know, whoever your listeners are. And I think that this is part of history right here.
Absolutely.
These little conversations, these big conversations. So I'm just glad to know you, Radha, and your wisdom is also awesome to work with.
The feeling is so mutual. So much love, so much respect to you and all the listeners, sending you out so much love. Know that you are so worthy.
And if you have any topics that you want us to cover that you think that it's come to your mind, please feel free to reach out to Radha and let her know that you want to hear us talk about it.
Absolutely. Yes, please do. That would be incredible. So we're here for you. So much love. Have a beautiful day.
You as well, Radha.